bombings, especially the 1998 attacks on American embassies in Africa, to what al-Qaeda called the spectacular misery of 9/11. From Langley to Tora Bora to 1,000 unknown points in between, men and women acting for our collective security have lived and fought and died to disrupt al-Qaeda, struggling in a common cause that is, come to that, all too easy to put out of mind. This is their hour. It's fashionable in some foreign policy circles to minimize bin Laden's and al-Qaeda's significance. The argument, usually put quietly, in private, with a kind of world weariness, is that terrorism doesn't represent an existential threat to the United States, and that the wars after 9/11 have vastly distorted our policies and priorities. In some, this view holds that George W. Bush's post-9/11 vision of the world, a vision which shapes the reality his successor faces, is fundamentally misguided. For adherents of this school, it follows that bin Laden's death is thought of as symbolic, and, in a phrase that grew trite on television before the sun rose in the western United States on Monday morning, May 2nd, as a morale boost for the American psyche. It is, however, more than that. Yes, al-Qaeda is decentralized, and terrorists could strike from nearly anywhere under the banner of some entity about which we know nothing at the moment. As for the boosted psyche, moments of political and communal feeling, both good and bad, come and go. President Obama's poll numbers will rise, and they will fall. But radical Islamic terrorism, and radical Islam itself, matters. It may not threaten the existence of the United States, but it endangers the existence of those who might be killed by its attacks, and is a force in nuclear nations, such as Pakistan, that are riven by radicalism. The death of bin Laden cannot help but have a beneficial effect on our struggle against extremists, even if those extremists are driven to attempt vengeance. It underscores a capacity for persistence in the American character, a character often caricatured by its enemies as too fat and happy and decadent to focus on any one thing for very long. Of course, to be honest, sustained public attention is not an overly abundant American virtue. That is why an hour like this one is so important. There are moments in the life of a nation and of the world which force an examination of familiar assumptions and offer a largely sclerotic political culture an opportunity to adjust course. Which brings us to this book. The death of bin Laden is an occasion to assess where we have been and where we're going. 2 wars were begun in the shadow of bin Laden's attacks, one in Afghanistan, the other in Iraq. The former drags on interminably. Our relations with Pakistan are such that the White House did not inform its government before the assault on bin Laden's compound. The proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, nuclear, chemical, biological, remains disturbing and maddeningly uncontrollable. The events of the Arab Spring give hope. Muammar Gaddafi's durability in Libya gives pause. In the essays that follow, the contributors look ahead, beyond emotion and conventional wisdom, to suggest what the post-bin Laden chapter in American life may be like. And it makes sense to think in terms of chapters, not wholly different stories, for what the government christened the global war on terror in the wake of 9/11 can never truly end. Even the long twilight struggle of the Cold War, the phrase is John F. Kennedy's, reached a conclusion with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the breakup of the Soviet Union under George H.W. Bush. Unlike Soviet communism, terrorism will be with us always. Yet everything is a matter of degree. It would be progress indeed if terror could occupy the same place in our national priorities and imagination as it did in the 1970s and 1980s, a reality but not a consuming one. This may not be possible, but bin Laden's death gives us at least a moment to ponder these kinds of scenarios. Among the most exciting of such possibilities is that the killing of bin Laden will give President Obama the political room to underscore issues of investment that are not traditionally thought of in national security terms. The national challenges we face are far from limited to the threat of violence by radical Islamists. From education to infrastructure to debt, Americans have much to do, and the distinction